Rosen. And tonight's special report.
I'm Alan Cox with the story of Minneapolis firefighters' battle against the firestorm and of what might have been had they lost.
Good evening. Dave has the night off. Last night, we led this newscast with the story of the biggest fire in Minneapolis history. The main element of that story was the fury of the flames and the sheer magnitude of the blaze, covering an entire city block, threatening buildings and neighboring blocks. Tonight, we look at the afterglow of the downtown inferno. Just a few hours ago at sunset, the huge plume of smoke continued to waft from the shell of the old Donaldson store in the Northwestern National Bank building. It's an eerie addition to the city skyline, and a costly one. The blaze has done at least $30 million in damage. At this hour, the main priority is to knock down the burned-out buildings to ensure the public safety and to snuff out the remnants of that fire. That process should take some time. Now, Alan Cox is once again live at the scene for an update. Alan, what can you tell us?
Don, the steam is still rising from the Nicollet Mall, watched now by about 20 Minneapolis firefighters assisting a demolition crew that will be working through the night, tearing through the embers. We're told that a few more streets will be open in downtown Minneapolis tomorrow, but that the immediate area around this block will still be sealed off. I'll be back later in the broadcast with a special report on what the fire might have meant in Minneapolis.
Thank you, Alan. We still don't know the cause of that fire, but we do know that it will not be forgotten for quite some time. Two reports now, beginning with Dave Nimmer.
Before the flames from the fire had died, arson investigators were on the scene looking for a cause. As of this morning, they were still not sure whether it was arson or spontaneous combustion from somewhere within the rubble from the old Donaldson building.
We're investigating a couple different possibilities. We've got some street rumors that we're checking on that haven't really panned out. We've got a couple different versions of statements that were made, but the information is enough so that we have to talk to these people and get it straight.
One of the rumors they're trying to straighten out is that a man and a woman were bragging last night that they started the fire. The cause was not, however, the major concern for the shoppers today. They had problems parking and getting around, and things weren't a whole lot better for the store managers.
It's not going to devastate our Christmas holiday. I think that we will be adversely impacted today because of all the commotion going on around us. And I think that our sales tomorrow might be slightly off from what they would have been.
As inconvenienced the shoppers and storekeepers might be, the real impact of the fire is upon those who work in the Northwestern National Bank building. And for that story, we go to Tom Hendrick.
In the Northwestern Bank's lobby, the first airplane of Charles Lindbergh, which had been on display here, is intact amidst the damage. While much inside was incinerated in the melting heat, the bank vaults, cash, checks, and safety deposit boxes were not damaged, officials say. The branch offices today handled the business normally conducted at the main office. Since all transactions like checking and savings are computerized and duplicated, nothing was destroyed. It was busier at the branches. Main office employees didn't like having another holiday.
It's almost like my second home. I spend so much time in that place.
3,000 people worked here, half of them for companies leasing space from the bank. Those tenants' records are more in doubt. Bakery & Benson, the second biggest law firm in the state, occupied the 13th, 14th, and 16th floors.
Those records can be replaced and the files rebuilt. We expect that it will be a serious and a difficult and a nasty task, but that it can be accomplished.
It is difficult to make precise damage estimates. Fires still are smoldering. Firefighters will be here through the weekend. And hundreds of employees may spend their Thanksgiving weekend also working, setting up new offices. I'm Tom Hendrick, WCCO Television News, Minneapolis.
As anyone with a credit card knows, today is traditionally one of the biggest shopping days of the year. However, that fire didn't do much for business today in downtown Minneapolis. The people were there, crowds of them. The problem was they were too busy watching the smoke and the firemen to buy anything. And a lot of merchants said that their sales were down as a result of that.
Thanks, Pat. After Thanksgiving, sales are not simply commercial hullabaloo these days. Merchants...
Bank building, well, it's a charred hulk, at least from the 6th floor on up.
That's right, Cindy. There still are bits and pieces of debris under the rubble, so the firefighters are standing by just in case of a flare-up. There have been some, but the fire is pretty much out now. The cleanup and the investigation have now begun. Damage totals in the tens of millions, and firefighters are still in the dark about what ignited the blaze. We get more on this from Dave Andrews.
It was a fire unlike any ever seen in downtown Minneapolis, the most destructive in the city's history. Damage estimates already being discussed, $30 million. By today, as firefighters continue to hose down the smoldering rubble, the investigation into the cause of the fire was well underway. Officials know it broke out in rubble inside the demolition site where the old Donaldson's building was being torn down. But the question is how. Arson investigators are following up leads, checking out reports that suspicious people were seen near the demolition site when the fire was spotted. But investigators say they have not found any conclusive evidence.
No, we don't have a cause. We're investigating a couple different possibilities. We've got some street rumors that we're checking on that haven't really panned out. We've got a couple different versions of statements that were made, but the information is enough so that we have to talk to these people and get it straight.
Several stores inside the IDS complex could not open for business today due to the fire. They lost a lot of business on this, the busiest shopping day of the year. While some predicted the fire would keep shoppers away from downtown, that was not the case. Most stores able to stay open were busy.
We decided to come downtown. I live over in Kenwood, and it's close by, and we thought maybe some people wouldn't come downtown because of the fire, so we thought we could get down here. It wouldn't be as crowded.
Fire officials praised the overnight work of their men in containing the blaze to just a one-block area, and they were thankful there were no deaths. Close to a dozen firefighters sustained minor injuries. One is still hospitalized in stable condition after suffering chest pains. Assistant Chief Alan Wold was thankful the fire broke out on a holiday and not when the Northwestern Bank building was full of workers.
If this had been a normal working day, a lot of people downtown, a lot of people in the bank building, could have been much worse?
I would say it could have been a real disaster. So we're very fortunate it happened on Thanksgiving.
Cleanup work on the scene will continue to get this section of downtown back to operating order as quickly as possible. The arson squad will be working just as hard, searching for the answer, how did the fire begin? But officials said the causes of many fires go unsolved, adding that that could be the case with this one. Dave Andrews, Channel 5, Eyewitness News.
That big fire on the mall posed two very important questions about valuables located inside the bank, and namely customers' money and a certain and a very special airplane.
But we can tell you the Lindbergh Jenny is safe.
This is the Nicollet Mall side. This is the old Donaldson's department store building, half demolished. The fire apparently started in the rubble of that demolition. It spread up in a firestorm up the back side of the bank building. Within a half hour, the midway up the bank building, the fire had caught. It spread up to the roof of the bank. It wasn't until mid-evening that the fire appeared in the windows of the part of the Donaldson's department store that had been left standing by the demolition crews. It was bad enough. Like most disasters, in some ways it could have been better. In a lot of ways, it could have been much worse.
If there had been more people downtown, if it had been a normal weekday, firefighters might have heard about the fire sooner, could have caught it in the first minutes as the bonfire grew. But if it had been a normal workday, evacuation from the area could have become a deadly nightmare. The holiday added to the number of sightseers, but kept down the number of potential victims. So firefighters could follow a simple strategy: contain the fire within one block. If there had been more firefighters, the fire might have been contained sooner. With holiday staffing, it was hard to dispatch enough personnel to the scene in the first crucial minutes before the bank building caught.
I feel that if this was in a bigger city like New York or Chicago, they would have had 250, 300 people on the job here right off the bat.
Is that manpower an issue?
Well, it's always an issue in something like this. I mean, this is a one in a a long shot fire, but you just can't get enough people here quick enough to really attack it.
If there had been more fire equipment, flames at the top of the bank might have been put out sooner. But there's no guarantee the upper floors could have been saved. The department's ladders could reach only halfway up the bank. A new platform for hoses that could have helped wasn't available. It was under repair. Higher ladders would have been a godsend if people had been trapped on the upper floors, but higher ladders might not have been able to support hoses. If there had been worse weather, windier, colder, the fire might have broken through the curtains of water sprayed on neighboring buildings. Another 10 miles an hour of wind, another 10 degrees of chill, and the fire could have been devastating to Minneapolis.
We had a lot of breaks. We got a very good turnout from our dedicated firefighters. We put out the call over the media to return to duty, and we were just swamped with guys coming to work. And they did a beautiful job. They worked hard. And, of course, we were lucky that we didn't have a larger wind. I believe it was about 2 miles an hour at the time. And it'd been a 20-mile-an-hour wind, I don't know where it would have ended.
Finally, if the Minneapolis fire code were stricter, if it required buildings like these to be retrofitted with sprinkler systems, the fire possibly, just possibly, might not have spread through the bank so quickly. Retrofitting buildings is expensive. It might have cost $1.5 million in the bank building, and many of the older buildings that were in danger last night aren't retrofitted with sprinkler systems either. The Minneapolis Fire Department had proposed that about 1.5 years ago after the deadly MGM Hotel fire in Las Vegas. Fire officials say they'll be proposing it again in Minneapolis in the days to come. Don?
Your efforts in bringing us the story have not gone unnoticed, too. Thank you very much for the work you've done over the past couple of nights. Appreciate it, Alan. In just a moment, Ralph John Fritz will be here with today's sports. That's when the 10 p.m. report continues.